Alors, j'ai invoqué NPT and UN Security Council Resolution 2231 to defend Iran's right to a peaceful nuclear program. Why do you think these international frameworks are being openly ignored or sidelined by the EU leadership today? To put it more simply, what is the obsession with Iran's peaceful nuclear program?
Well, the Iranians and also particularly the British journalist based in Vienna at the moment, Richard Medhurst, have done a very good job in explaining the history here of the attempts by Iran to keep the JCPOA going and the attempts, well, the attempts by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu to destroy the deal. The International Atomic Energy Authority have been at the center of this, and I noticed there are some reports. It's very difficult to say whether they're true or not, and I don't like saying that, but I suspect it may be true that the British Foreign Intelligence Service MI6 have spent a lot of time and effort in infiltrating the International Atomic Energy Authority in order to compromise it, as they have done, the Western intelligence services with so many international organizations. I'm thinking about the OPCW, chemical weapons, OCPW, the chemical weapons regulators and watchdog. So the thing is, if you're in a treaty against chemical weapons, and if you're in a treaty against nuclear weapons, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, it's certainly apparent to many people now that you're also in bed with the Central Intelligence Agency, MI6, and the NATO intelligence services. And so this is an utterly pernicious use of public money in Europe and the United States for them to be abusing these international organizations. So the IAEA have been issuing all sorts of reports about Iran, as you and I have been talking about this for quite a long time, and we've seen a very partial approach by them. The idea seems to be that the Iranians are not in compliance, blah blah. Well, what about Israel? What about Israel's 200 or so nuclear weapons? And what about the fact that the Americans trying to stop the Israelis getting nuclear weapons in the 1960s may have been a contributing factor to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy? What about these factors? The International Atomic Energy Authority doesn't seem interested in the nuclear crimes of the West, including the crime of using atomic weapons on Japan in 1945, when the main reason for that was almost certainly because they wanted to stop the Russians invading Japan and claim Japan for themselves, the Americans. So the abuse of atomic weapons has always been on the side of the United States and NATO, and not on Iran. And of course, everybody is entitled to a peaceful nuclear program for nuclear energy. But it's almost as if Donald Trump and his friends are doing everything they possibly can to force Iran's hand to getting a nuclear weapon. We have an organization, the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. Sophie Bolt is their current Secretary General, and I spoke to her last week. It's almost as if Iran is attempting to become a member of the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament here in Britain, because we all know that these weapons of mass destruction should be banned around the world. In fact, the United Nations has passed a resolution banning nuclear weapons, and yet the Israelis are allowed scot-free, it seems, to keep them. And so this is really an attempt to use the world's press and use these international organizations to bamboozle the public into thinking that there is some kind of fairness going on, where actually Iran is being put in a box by the intelligence services here, in a box which is almost impossible for them to get out of without acquiring nuclear weapons. And I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but it seems that the intimidation by the press and these international organizations is absolutely unacceptable and needs to be much well. I think some countries do know about this. The Russians know, the Chinese know, many parts of the world know, but it's not very well known within the United States and Europe, I'm afraid.
Definitely. Mr. Gosling, what more should we expect from the West to, is the West going to, escalate the pressure economically or even militarily in response to Iran's suspensions of the IAEA?
I think for the most part, most people understand why the Iranians have done this, and that is because of the abuse by the inspectors, and also by getting engaged in this process. Many, I'm not sure how many, I'm not sure even Iran knows quite how many atomic scientists in Iran have been assassinated, whether it's through agents in the country assassinating them, bombs planted in Iran to assassinate scientists, or else Israeli missiles flying through the air, or Israeli drones destroying the homes of these nuclear scientists. So this, I think, is that one of the key points is that by negotiating and attempting to negotiate in good faith with the United States, the Iranians have sadly given away some information about who their atomic scientists are, and the United States has abused that by then getting involved with the Israelis and murdering those individuals. So you can see it's a very dicey business trying to negotiate with the West. And remember Colonel Gaddafi negotiating with Tony Blair over Libya, and them even having a hug together. And then, of course, within a few years, the United States, but particularly the French and the British, had gone into Libya to murder Gaddafi like a dog in the street. And so you've got to be very careful when you're negotiating with the West. I do think it's important that the nuclear program is continued, though, in Iran, because it is everyone's right to do it, and not to be intimidated by these bully boy tactics. Many people see the United States attack on Iran as simply an excuse to end the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, which Netanyahu was losing very fast. And so by intervening, Donald Trump, by bombing Iran, what he did was gave Netanyahu an opportunity to save face by saying, OK, the war is ended. Actually, Netanyahu was very scared that he was going to have to climb down, and Trump helped him out there. And so you can see much of this is geopolitics and favors for friends being done by the United States, mainly helping Israel. And never forget, within seconds, the United States could cut off the billions in aid that it sends there every year, and immediately the Israelis would have to order a ceasefire in Gaza, and obviously in places like Syria and Lebanon too. So the United States holds all the keys. Yes. And I hope at some point somebody puts some pressure on to stop the killing, particularly the horrors in Gaza. And we've just been watching on the television a documentary here in the UK, the BBC banned, all about the bombing of the hospitals. A brilliant documentary made by some fantastic British journalists. The BBC's tried to muzzle, like they've muzzled me, by the way. But I mean, this is amazing to see this on British television. We're getting it right in the face, just how barbaric these Israelis are, and how they must be stopped immediately from destroying lives and by killing hospital infrastructure, and then trying to use their influence with the press to cover up their war crimes.